we need to select that fill. Make sure it's the fill that we're selecting, not one of the lines. We copy that to the clipboard, edit, copy, and we can now close down the worksheet. So just hit the cross and close down the worksheet, because we're going into Options, Complex Profiles, Profile Manager, and we want to create I'm just going to check, we want to create a new profile. So click this button here to create a new profile, and we'll call this one Fascia, Purlin, Gutter. So this is a fascia purlin at the gutter end. We'll also have a fascia purlin at the top end. So we'll click OK to that. So the fascia purlin at the gutter, it's opened it up for us. By the way, before we forget later on, change what it's used with. So it's never going to be used with walls. Now you can't uncheck that at the moment, because it needs at least one of these three things checked. So we'll change it to be beams. That's all we're going to use it for. Now that it's on beams, you can uncheck walls, so that you leave it just beams. And we're in the editor here. You'll need to zoom out a bit to find the origin. It's a little cross somewhere, so zoom out, roll your scroll wheel back until you see that little origin mark through there, and then we're going to edit paste or Control V. So let's just click center of the current view. Click center of current view and zoom keep current view. So click paste, and now we can move it into position. Now the position I want to move it into would be, I'll use a couple of guidelines for this I think. So I'll pull up some, by the way, when you've got the marquee, the dotted line marquee around there, it means it's not placed yet. So if you click outside of the marquee, it will accept the position. If you click inside the marquee, it lets you move it to a new location. So until you've clicked outside of the marquee, it's still active and waiting to be placed. So I'm going to place a guideline at this top edge, and then a guideline at the left-hand fascia edge, and then I'm going to select the fill and then go up to Edit, Move, Drag, or it looks like it's Control D, and I'm going to move it from this intersection point to that origin point. Okay, so there's the origin point that I want it to be. That's similar to the origin point that we set up for our roofing purlins. This has all got to sort of line up with what we're doing in the roofing purlins. So we go up to View, Guideline Options, remove all guidelines now, and we've got a fascia purlin gutter. So we can close that down. We've made that now. Close the Profile Manager down. We go to our first floor plan, and we'll place the beam. So the beam that we're placing now, beam tool that we're placing, same as we did before. I think we left it on beams interior. Leave the geometry method to single line. Change the structure. We're leaving it as a complex profile, but change the complex profile to fascia purlin gutter, the one that we've just done. And we're going to place a fascia purlin. Here's the last Z purlin that we placed before. So just place one fascia purlin on that brick wall to there. Actually, we'll probably end up sketching this all the way through the building. At the moment, we're just placing in that location. And then, like we did last time, we can then open up the section view to fine-tune that placement. So that section is hovering over at SO1. So I've got SO1 already open here. If you haven't, you can go to the pop-up and find section SO1. Okay, so here's the last purlin that we placed there before. Here's grid Y4. We probably want to pull these grids up to give us something to work with, but I'll pull at least this grid with Y4 up for the moment. Something like that. And I'll get a guideline to give me the top of that purlin. Okay, now this purlin needs to be flipped around the other way. So sometimes if you click on these, you'll see a flip, but there is nothing in the options up there. So I will click on it again to get the pet tool to come up, and here's the mirror of the pet tool. So once you've got that, just click this edge over here, and it's flipped that onto that edge. Now position this. We want to position this, first of all, click on it again, change from mirror back to drag, and we want to drag that down. So it's just like the Z purlin that we've created over here, but then we want to pull it down and out further again. So I'm going to drag this point here. Now I want to get a line parallel. So if I hover and wait for that to light up blue, I can come down to this location here and see I get the parallel line, that little dotted parallel line there, and I want that to come parallel until it hits that intersection. Okay, so that's what I wanted to achieve. I wanted the fascia purlin to sit outside that grid line, which will be the end of the block wall. So that way the fascia purlin, we can trim off these little nibs on the fascia purlin, but the fascia itself can stretch right through that block wall. So I think we've got the fascia purlin pretty much in the right location there now. The whole arrangement though, I might want to have a little bit of a think about. If I grab another guideline, okay, guidelines don't seem to want to snap to floor level, so I'll just use a normal line here and click on the end of there, and I'll just draw a line out. Oops, do it again. A line out from there, straight through, and click on it again to finish that line. We'll change that line from that. We don't want it being a break line, just a nice solid line would be fine. Okay, so the top of this wall is set out at the top of level 1, so we've got to make some decisions here now. Level one was 3.3 metres. That might work out very nicely actually, because this wall, we probably want that to be change the height to be 3.2. So if you click on the wall again, no, looks like we might have to do that in 3D. Later on we'll change, or we can change it through here, I think. We'll go to settings dialog box. Use my wall selection settings dialog box. I want to make this total height be 3.2 metres, so it respects concrete block modules. Concrete blocks are 190 millimetres high, with a 10 millimetre mortar joint, so that makes a module of every 200 millimetres, makes a full block. So our story height is 3.3. If we come down from the first floor, or if we say not linked, is probably the appropriate way of doing this. If we say not linked, we can then set up the height to be 3200. So that's modules of 200 millimetres, so that we don't have to cut blocks. If I click OK to that, you can see now that we've changed that height slightly down there. We'll now establish the spacing of this first purlin back from this location now. But before we do, it's facing around the wrong way. So I'll click on it, click on the pet tool again, click on it to select the pet tool again, change the pet tool to mirror, the second one, click on one of those vertical edges, and that's flipped it round that way. So we'll have to change the rotation to, it looks like 300 to 5. If we change it to 5 degrees again, it fixes the rotation up again. Okay, so now we've got the Z purlin. If you can imagine, sets of cleats would normally come on this back face here like that. Now, if I want to now establish the spacing of that first purlin. So probably what I would do is grab a grid line and zoom in here to this edge of this first one and place that there. So that would be similarly to the left-hand side of this web member, okay, to find the position of the next one. So if you hover and wait for that grid line, that guideline to come with its move circle, and if you come close to where we are at the moment, or even go a little bit further, you can see, I'm wondering if if I go to 1400, that looks like it might be too much. So I think I'm going to come back to 1350. So if you offset that line there, 1350, and then if we move this, drag from that edge, go to drag again, and drag that edge to there, but then drag it again in case it has moved off until it goes perpendicular there. So I want it to be in that corner of those guidelines, and that guideline was 1350 from its mating point over here. So we've got a 1350 spacing for our first purlin now. So if I grab that guideline and get rid of it now, well, no, I won't. I'll make use of that. We need one of these purlins every 2.4 meters. So we can grab this guideline and move it out here 2400, and then we can select this purlin, and then we can select it again to get drag happening, but select it from somewhere like, well, that's where that guideline was from, that left-hand edge of that web member. So select it from there, somewhere along this edge like I'm doing, and make sure you're in the drag command, and then do the copy, so your control key, option if you're on that, and copy that to this next one. So we've now got another purlin in place. And if you've done that nice and accurately, the top edge of this should be in line with that guideline as well. Now while that one's selected, I think I'm going to do a multiple copy this time. So while it's selected there, I'm going to go Edit, Move, Drag Multiple Copies. And I'm going to go from some known location on this back one, so that's the one that's selected, go back one from there, and go from some known location like that corner edge just there, and copy that multiple to, if you zoom out, to that location on that one. So that's placed a new one for you out here. So you can continue to go to that new one and place the next one at that corner, which has placed a new one for you up here. So you can just keep leapfrogging your copies then from one accurate location to the next. Now when we get to this one, this will be the last one, it'll probably be too many, so I'll escape now. And so when you get past here, we'll need to bring back that last purlin some known location until it would be, well, let's have a look here, drag Y1 up as well like we did to Y4 earlier. Like we're going to have a wall sitting, I'll grab another guideline, we'll have a wall sitting nominally on the outside of this glass curtain wall going in here. So we'll need to bring this edge here back somewhere to the outside of that line, I think. So just to work out a nice nominal position for that, I might use guidelines again. So if I grab a guideline on the left-hand side of this web, okay, so I can grab that guideline now and move it to where I think on the left-hand side of that web might be. It looks like 2100 is going to be too not enough distance, not by much though. Maybe even 2100, no. So I think I'll go 2150. So I'll stretch out and go 2150. So that, and now I'll move member here to go from that left-hand edge of that web and perpendicular to there. So we've got 2400 spacings for all of these, and we've got a 2150 spacing just at the end for that one. So we'll just clean up some of these guidelines, put them in the trash there, and put this one here. I've left, and I'll leave one guideline up for, and I'll get rid of that one as well. So I've just left one guideline for the underside of the roof. Okay, so we might stop the video there, and then when we come back, we'll look at putting another fascia purlin, but up on this top edge of the skillion roof.